We've gone through the Dune TV series. We've gone through the Denis Villeneuve two-part films. And now we have finally made it to David Lynch's Dune. Kind of out of order chronologically here, because this one came first, then came the TV series, and then came this. This isn't really a TV series, it's a mini-series, like 3 or 4 films made into a 3-part, whatever. Yeah. And all 3 of them have unique content. All 3 of them have unique story bits into it that the other versions don't have. And that's crazy to think about, because David Lynch's Dune, this version that I have here, is only 2 hours and 17 minutes. And it contains content that the other 2 versions don't really go over too much. The weirding way, I don't remember if the Denis Villeneuve movies touched on all that much. Maybe it was a little bit too complicated of a concept, so they blended it in with some other things. Or maybe the David Lynchian version changed the weirding way up the most, and these 2 versions were actually more faithful to the book. I haven't read the book yet. This is why we're going out of order here. I watched the TV series first. I watched this version first. This was my first experience to Dune. And then I got the movies, these 2, the new movies, and they were very good. And then finally I get to this one, and it's also very good. So we're going to be making another one later on when I finally get to the book and read the book. Just the first book. I don't need to read the Children of Dune and all that other stuff. We're just going to read the first Dune, because that's what these are always based off of, is the first movie, and the first book. So we're going to get to that later. But for right now, we're going to be talking about this version. This version is the 2 hour and 17 version of the film, combining everything into 2 hours and 17 minutes. The first hour and a half, just about, is pretty much all the content from the first movie. And the first movie is 2 hours and 25 minutes long. 35 minutes long. So this had roughly twice the time to tell the story that this film only had half the time to tell. And then the other Denis Villeneuve movie, which is 166 minutes, this only has about an hour and a half to tell that story. And it's the most rushed, is chopped to bits. For example, Chun-Yi here, I think she only has a grand total of like 5 minutes of screen time. She barely says anything in the movie. She barely has any presence. Their romance, Paul and Chun-Yi's romance, is also very streamlined. It's basically told to you. You know, the crime in storytelling is we need to show, not tell. Well, this film had no time to show, so it had to tell. Which means in between major scenes, we will have narration, explaining things during time skips, because the film couldn't actually show you that type of the story. They couldn't show you too much of what's going on because there's not enough time. So the narration says that Paul and Chun-Yi fall in love. You don't actually get to see that. Then again, they don't really have that much charisma in the Dune movies, but at least you get to see some of it. I think that the Paul and Chun-Yi romance is the weakest part across all 3 of these versions here. When I get to the book and read that, I will probably be able to have my final say on which version has the best Paul Chun-Yi romance. But if I'm going to compare all 3 of them, the weakest one, I think, is this version, because there really is no romance at all in this. There's nothing here. You see absolutely nothing here. You just told that they fall in love. You get a scene of them kissing, and that's it. It's a little montage scene of them kissing, and that's it. It is very disappointing. But then again, I can understand. It's 2 hours and 17 minutes. There's barely any time. Now I know that there is another version of this film out there, so my journey for all of the Dune isn't completed yet. There is an extended edition version of Dune. I don't know how long. I think it might be 3 hours. But I want to collect that one eventually, so that we can find out what was cut from this version, so that I can see the full picture that David Lynch was trying to do. I want to see the full thing, everything that he filmed. I wanted that full version of Dune put into a version of Dune called Dune, the definitive Dune, but for what it's worth, this one does show the little sister. I don't think the little sister is in the Denis Villeneuve Dunes. I don't think it is. I'll have to rewatch Dune Part 2, because Dune Part 2 is pretty forgettable to me. I remember the first part a lot better. I may have to rewatch them. I do like the plot of this. It is definitely far more politically banterishness. You know how that goes with Star Wars and the Phantom Menace, the Trade Federation, yada yada. And people said, "Oh, we don't care about that." That's pretty much all this is. This is a Trade Federation banter, and then we finally get guerrilla warfare with the natives on a planet that big empires are trying to mine for resources that control Starflight. And there's a lot of that in here. This isn't a Star Warsy action paction. There is some of that in here, obviously. It is more of that political, spiritual, but the natives. It's very Lawrence of Arabia-esque. Yeah, that's my connection right there for you. It's a very Lawrence of Arabia-esque, and that's one of my favorite films of all time. It's one of the best movies ever made, in my opinion, and I recommend it everybody, everywhere to watch that movie. You don't have to watch it all at once. It's 4 hours long, after all. Just maybe watch the first 2 hours, get to the intermission, stop, come back, and get to the second half, the second 2 hours. It's an incredible movie. But back on topic here. There is content that is different across all three versions here. Although, obviously, these two versions have more time to tell the story, this one has more of an aesthetically pleasing outfit palette. For example, I like Paul the best in this movie. Out of all the other three versions of Paul, I think this one is the best. It's my Agent Cooper boy. I keep forgetting his name, but it's Agent Cooper. David Lynch likes to cast a lot of the same people for these roles. And of course we have Sting here. I keep forgetting his name. I always do. Rouge, whatever. I forget his name, but he's the Harkonnen kid, the Harkonnen nephew, who is like a monster in battle. Although he's built up better in these two versions, though he has the best build-up in this one compared to all three versions, if you ask me, because they have more time with this one. The Harkonnens, design-wise, Baron Harkonnen looks like a very sickly man in this one. He just looks like a portly nobleman in this one, but both families of Harkonnens in these two versions are redheads. In this version, the Harkonnens are sickly looking, like this one, but also pale-skinned and bald. They're all bald. I don't know I have a theory on where Denis got that idea from. I think he got that idea from the guild in this version. There is a scene where the Emperor is meeting with the guild, and I think it's called the Spice Guild or whatever, and they all look like bald, sickly people, a bunch of mutants and all that stuff. So I'm thinking he combined that design of the guild with the Harkonnens to make them look more alien, to make them look more dastardly and evil and all that good stuff. So it is what it is. I prefer the redhead Harkonnens, if you ask me, honestly. I prefer that a little bit more. The best Baron Harkonnen to me is probably the TV series one. He's just a pompous, but very fun, and he's also very dastardly. He's politically savvy. He's a genius. He's a strategist, and he obviously is the smartest between his nephews. He is really diabolical. I really love him in this version compared to all three of the other ones. He's just a cackling, sickly old man in this one, and he is very menacing and scary in this one. He's played by Skarsgård in this one, so he's definitely very good in this one. Though they missed an opportunity to have his two Skarsgård's kids play the two Harkonnen nephews. That would have been a pretty interesting little casting choice there. Who would you think would play Sting's character? I think Bill, right? And who would play the bigger one? I think Alex. But that was a missed opportunity, at least in my opinion. But what else can I say? There's 2 hours and 17 minutes of Dune. The outfits look fantastic. The world is really good. And they do the best that they can to tell you the story, the full story, without showing you everything. They have to they have to cut things, but they do have narration bits. They do show that. And I like the dueling with the little daggers here. I like that idea. They brought that in for that. I just wish it was longer. I wish it was an hour longer. It needed that extra hour. This version, the 2 hour and 17-minute version, is a disaster for the second half. All of the Fremen are whoosh, whoosh. They just whoosh by. There's barely any story with them. You barely get anything with Chani, barely anything with the little sister, barely anything with any of that. It's all streamlined. Flash forward to the ending. And that's very disappointing to me. But it's understandable. 2 hours and 70 minutes for a 4-hour movie. Yeah, I would have rather had the 4-hour movie.